And greetings. Happy Friday. Wow, Steve, that's crazy that from your Airbnb in Vegas, you were able to construct an exact replica of your set in Des Moines.
Really upgraded the road kit for you this year.
We did. And it's all virtual, of course, all AI. It's all ball bearings these days. No.
Are you projecting yourself like Luke Skywalker in that Rancid movie?
I am not. This is the plans did not go as planned. Picked up the wife yesterday to go to the airport, and that is the whitest I've known Amy Ramsey for 31 years, and that is the most pale white she has ever looked. But of course, man, a woman is not going to turn down, an expense-paid trip to Vegas in the middle of January, right? So she's gonna soldier on, okay? But I can just look at her, and I'm already starting to feel like we can't do this. We get to the airport, all right? And cancellation. First of all, they get us all loaded on the plane, but there's a massive smell. The pilot doesn't like it. Take us off.
Oh.
And I was already looking at the weather forecast, right? Because the temp's dropping with all this rain, and the sleet's going to come in, and the winds. And I'm like, if we had to take off by like 4 o'clock, we didn't take off by 4 o'clock. Okay. The cancellations begin. I'm still getting cancellation notices, by the way, for my flight pattern the day after by America Airlines. And I finally could just tell. My wife is like, I'm looking at her like, she cannot. This is not the sickness you travel with. So I canceled it. I mean, I could have gone to the event on my own and flown out the next day. But you make decisions like that if you have been married, if you've not been married for 10 minutes, or you don't want to be married another 10 minutes thereafter. Okay. You don't leave the sick wife at home and go off to Vegas on your own for 5 days. You don't do that. Okay. So to all of our friends there at Calvary Chapel Church in Vegas that were going to host us at that conference this weekend, you guys were very gracious when my booking agents let you guys know. I'm very, very sorry. I think in the 10 years I've done public speaking, this is only the second time I've had to do this. So my apologies. It's still a fantastic lineup out there. I was just going to be one of a cast of half a dozen. So I'm sure it'll still be a great event. And I'd love to come back out another time when we don't have swirling winds, rain, sleet, and my wife does not look like she dressed like a ghost for Halloween, but it's January the 8th. All right. So thus, gentlemen, I am here. But here's the thing, though. We've had this great weather yesterday, outstanding. All this 40, 50-degree weather and sunshine. I'm feeling great. I don't have the winter blahs. Going to have another 40-something sunny day today. Going to get out and walk today, so I'm okay. I'm in a good mental headspace. My name is still Steve Deace. You're still Todd Erzin. You're good?
I don't. It's winter. I expect winter in winter. So
all right. Don't.
So I'm good. I'm just answering your questions.
Yeah, sure you are. Sure you are. I know what that was, and so does every other guy.
It's January.
Okay.
It's
Aaron McIntyre, you better be better than that. How are you?
I'm great. I'm
there you
doing
go.
Great. Yeah.
Our good friend Tim Young will be joining us here soon as well for the Deace Group, who's wondering what in the world did I just walk into. We love to welcome new partners on the show, and when they make their debut, we want to give them top billing, I should say, and that's Cowboy Colostrum. If you want to feel better, more stable energy, better digestion, healthier skin and hair, this is one of those foundational things you want to pay attention to. I just got my samples in the mail the other day, so I'm looking forward to trying this. It is highest quality bovine colostrum available in the U.S., sourced entirely from American grass-fed cows, produced right here at home. Healthy fats. What's the new food pyramid that RFK Jr. just put out yesterday? Right, protein, healthy fats. That's exactly what Cowboy Colostrum is all about. All right, and it actually tastes good. I'm told. I'm about to find out probably this weekend. All right, just add a scoop to your coffee or your smoothie. You won't regret it. For a limited time right now, you guys can get 25% off your entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/Deace. That's COLOSTRUM as in Mary, just like it sounds. Cowboycolostrum.com/Deace. Use the code DEACE at checkout. You'll get 25% off at cowboycolostrum.com/Deace. And with that, next hour, it'll be your turn on a Feedback Friday. But first, it's time for the Deace Group. And there he is, our good friend, conservative comedian Tim Young. Merry Christmas belatedly. Happy New Year belatedly, brother. Haven't seen you since before the holidays. How are you?
I probably need some cowboy colostrum after the holidays. Got to get it cleared out.
Yes, we all do. Indeed. Yes, we do. Well, it is. Go ahead.
No, I said I'm doing good, Steve. I'm glad to see you. I want to say that you're one of the shows that I actually keep up with, other than when Todd's on, is when I change the channel, and then I just hope he's done talking and I switch it back.
Many do. You have jackets. It's a good club.
Oh, you know what? True story, and I shouldn't admit this on the air, but I'm comfortable enough in my masculinity, and I'm in my 50s, so I will. I went to I lived on the only co-ed floor at Michigan State University. And we had viewing parties for Beverly Hills 90210 back in the day. And I was one of the few guys in the I Hate Brenda Club when we all got together and watched Beverly Hills 90210 back in those days. I was in the I Hate Brenda Club. From the I Hate Brenda Club to here, right?
You can
what a career path.
Complain about me all you want to, but you're not exactly bringing the best out of this guy right now.
No.
I was going to say, I wasn't that gay in college, so I don't know.
And with that, your weekly look at the week that was begins as it always does with issue 1. Bleep, Lord Nefarious says.
We're gonna die, bitch! All your loved ones are dead! And when this is over, we're gonna hunt you the down!
Happy New Year.
Well, I said this yesterday. We've never been at war with our federal government. I've not used inflammatory terms of what happened. Kristi Noem was judge, jury, and basically executioner yesterday.
I was like, I don't know if it's the right thing to do. It feels kind of wrong being here in some way. I don't know why.
Why do you think, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know, like, where that stems from. Like, part of it is being like a white woman that I'm privileged and I have a lot of privilege. So I feel like white tears are not always something that's helpful or necessary when black and brown people have been experiencing this for a long time.
To ICE, get the out of Minneapolis.
As we walked around the daycare, we saw that our office doors was broken into as well. We saw that, unfortunately, there was important documentation, enrollment of the children, and also employee documentation that was gone.
I understand. Fraud is bad.
This is what happens when they target communities for their own benefit. This is what happens when they scapegoat. And this is what happens when they no longer hide the idea of white supremacy.
Especially white families, but some POC families who are homeowners as well, are going to have a different relationship to property than the one that we currently have. For centuries, we've really treated property as an individualized good and not a collective good. And we are going to transitioning to treating it as a collective good and towards a model of shared equity will require that we think about it differently.
We will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
Hands up, Venezuela! Free President Maduro!
You should check out that communist flag over there.
What brings you out here today?
I'm organized with the Revolutionary Communists of America. We're out here to say hands off Venezuela. And we unequivocally stand with the people of Venezuela against U.S. imperialist aggression.
What do you think about the people of Venezuela celebrating on the streets?
What?
What do you think about the people of Venezuela celebrating on the streets today?
I saw images of Venezuelans being bombed after the U.S., bombed Caracas. So I'm not sure what you're talking about, but yeah, I think you should definitely
show me the bombings that you're talking about. I didn't see any.
I don't know. I just saw it on Reddit. It was on the front page of the internet.
Reddit.
So
okay.
I don't know.
That video's great. It goes on even longer. He shows the kid the celebrations in Caracas. And he's like, basically goes Beavis and Butthead. We've got chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. He just broke his programming, didn't know what to do. It's great.
This is what I said before. Reddit should be illegal. It should be shut down.
First question. Tim, as the guest, you get the first crack at it here. What was the most terrible of terribles that you just witnessed and why?
I think it's just the uninformed people in this one. Luckily, this week, see, if my ranking is going to be really low again this week. You always give me the simple stuff instead of when it's not adults dancing for children. It's just the the adults here and the white ladies and then that kid at the end who is just so completely uninformed and has become one of the sheep of the left. They take everything that they hear from the talking points of The View and Jimmy Kimmel and everything else and just kind of work with that and Reddit. Todd's absolutely right.
Wow.
See?
There we go. Todd, go ahead.
I already posted about it today. The white woman, deeply conflicted.
Whether she can even mourn her fellow white woman martyr.
Yes. See, this is the progressivism is cancer. Just coming, like, she's basically saying, I'm quite certain I deserve to die.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, everybody who agrees with everything else with her is simply saying that what you said yesterday, she is our martyr. And this is in a world where Matt Walsh made a fantastic point about how, notice, like, none of the Somalis they're mourning with you, because they don't care. They're just grifting the hell out of you.
Yes.
I mean, this is such an absurd reality that we live in modern day America. Any other generation, Steve's put this many ways before, this would have been impossible. And if anything close to it happened, it would have been beaten in the middle of the streets with severe prejudice. But here we are and this is that woman was absurd. But again, we have a significant man problem. We are so distracted. We are so comfortable. It would just been beneath our dignity as men to let anything, even if it didn't affect us directly, we would have had to deal with it. And here, go team. That's it. It's pathetic.
Aaron.
That was going to be mine as well. The white progressive woman, likely from the suburbs in Minnesota. What you heard there, her voice sounds exactly like, if you didn't see the woman, you would have assumed that was Amy Klobuchar talking. They sound exactly the same. If you hadn't seen it, you would have assumed it was Amy Klobuchar, maybe the next governor of Minnesota. You heard her somewhat crying. You heard her talking about, I just feel so bad, the self-loathing. It was very emotionalistic. What that actually was in the worldview steel cage match, though, is like Macho Man Randy Savage. That was some worldview vamping right there. Mm-hmm. Ooh, yeah. That's what that was. They really believe that, as we discussed yesterday. That's what you saw there. It was vamping. It was just vamping. And that should disturb you greatly because, again, they really believe this stuff. Now, I happen to believe this particular woman earlier this week probably really believed all this stuff until, oh crap, there's actually guns here. We're not theoretical anymore. But up until that point, she was very much ready and willing to give her life. And so are legions of others. And I use legion on purpose. Let's go to an honorable mention or dishonorable mention. This is maybe the perfect picture of what you can look forward to in New York City. Mm-hmm. A dude in a dress crying, yelling into a bullhorn for the release of a communist dictator while his voice cracks. While, again, I'll remind you, he's wearing a dress. Congratulations, New York. The whole thing with the C. Weaver, that tenant director, which is, I don't know if that's a new position that Zohran Mamdani has dreamed up. And, her dad's got $1 million property in Tennessee, and she owns this property over here. Guys, yeah, obviously. Let's just reset what we said the other day. I can't remember if it was yesterday or the day before. It's not hypocrisy, it's hierarchy. Of course, you should be expecting any of this from Zohran Mamdani's top lieutenants in his new government. Of course they're all probably loaded and have a lot of property and are not going to give it away while trying to foist property theft on you. Of course, that should be expected. So there's the dishonorable mention.
Let's get to the exit question. On a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being the odds, even the most beautiful woman has to worry about being sexually harassed by Lindsey Graham, and 10 being the odds that our guy here, Tim Young, does. Watch your 6 there, Timmy. Rank this week in 2026.
I've been working out. I've been lifting boxes into my new house, so I get it.
Watch your 6 in 2026. All right. Rank this week's level of total depravity, Tim.
2.5.
Wow. See, I think it's way worse, like I talked about yesterday, because now this stuff is in the water table. It's your neighbors now. All right. Your neighbors now are Reddit posters. Your neighbors now our collectivization 47 in the old discus comment section on MSNBC.com. All right. Holding up your own neighborhoods now. I mean, it's into the water table now. I think it's, even though it's funnier, I admit it's funnier. I admit it's funnier, but it's worse in my view.
For me, anytime it's not a trans person dancing for children, I rate it low. Right now, it's just, we're just edging on civil war. That's all. You got a Minnesota governor calling for civil war, and I kind of shrug at it now. It's like, you want that? Okay.
See, so you're basically Peter.
There's Tim using the Trump card there. No, Steve, it's worse than even you're laying out.
Yes.
That's what that
If you give us 10 seconds, we can find a tranny dancing in front of kids.
That's true.
Do you need that?
It would not take
Then
long.
it's a 9.
Okay. All right. Todd.
10.
Aaron.
I'm at an 8.5. It would have been lower if not for that late edition of the white progressive Minnesota woman.
All right, before we get to issue 2, a word about our friends over at Patriot Mobile. We have been customers of theirs now going on 6 years, and we have never looked back. They have been phenomenal for our family. You can make the switch as customizable as you want. Keep your phone, upgrade your phone, keep your number, switch your number. Mom and I got the adult kids new phones for as their big Christmas gift. And even over the holidays, Patriot Mobile handled all that data transfer, number transfer perfectly smoothly. Nobody missed any coverage or anything at all. You get all 3 of their major networks in their centralized hub. You can switch anytime you want for free if you're a member. And you might be thinking, hey, I'm locked into a terrible contract with a communist company. What do I do? Well, they've got contract buyout programs for you as well. All right. So if you want to make this switch today, use my name, Steve, as your promo code. You'll get a free month of service when you do at patriotmobile.com/Steve. Again, patriotmobile.com/Steve. Use the promo code Steve for a free month of service to get started at patriotmobile.com/Steve. All right, let's get to issue 2. Dan Bongino returns.
It's natural to be disappointed or angry at worst with Dan Bongino's tenure at the FBI, which ended abruptly at the end of last year. But you cannot deny, since he's back in this space, his now native space, he's come back dropping bombs, including his first post back where he said in part, quote, "We are a movement guided by truth. The essence of conservative ideology is the preservation of eternal truths. We are not the latest thing group. We are not political cannibals. I've watched quietly from the inside while doing the job I was hired to do, but I'm back now and it's time to restore balance to the force. We've got the midterms coming up. There's no time for BS. This administration is cooking and real change simmers. If you're spending your entire day bitching and whining with 3/4 of the term still to go, then please find the exits. There's no time for it. It's not infighting when you excise a cancer killing the host. It's outfighting because you're not a part of any movement I'm familiar with." In another post, Bongino seems to indicate a not so insignificant number of phenomena we've seen online with certain narratives is owed to a mixture of bots and paid influence campaigns and useful idiots. And finally, in another post, Bongino seems to settle a score with former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who in jest asked Bongino what it was like to win an election. Bongino replied saying, quote, "Maybe if I spent more time at shady parties with moneyed insiders, I would have won. I heard you'd know a little bit about that. You've always been a bleep, by the way, grifting off to your daddy like a suckling little doggy. When I first met you in the Panhandle, I knew you were a piece of poop. It's written all over that phony face of yours," end quote. This is going to be interesting to watch.
So here is why I picked this topic. I did this for personal reasons. Okay. I have known Dan Bongino for years. We were at CRTV together. I love Dan. I was greatly excited when he took the job as deputy director. I have not been greatly excited by what I saw out of the FBI while he was deputy director. I do not believe for a heartbeat that Jeffrey Epstein killed himself, or at least if he did, not in the traditional sense. I don't. And I think the video footage they put out last year indicating it, frankly, was a farce and a clown show. What was done to the FBI whistleblowers and what I heard from Steve Friend on my show here on Monday, I found deeply disturbing. And hey, if you want to say Steve should not have gone on a show and made any kind of veiled threat to Kash Patel, you're probably right about that. All right. But here's the thing. Why don't you try putting your entire career on the line? Get used for 3 years by conservative media people like me, and used as a punching bag for the Democratic Party by a bunch of members of Congress who love to have you come in and testify at their committees. And then after 3 years of that, no reinstatement, no back pay, no honorable discharge, and completely abandoned by your country. You might say some things you're probably, after 3 years of putting up with that, of not being able to get a job in your field, right? Not being paid the wages you're owed. After 3 years of that, you might end up saying a few things probably well before 3 years of that, I would guess. Maybe you're not proud of and you'd like to take back and regret too, okay? That all being said, holy crap, do we need Dan Bongino's voice right now? And I can't amen everything he said in every one of the posts that Aaron cited. I can't amen them anymore. It's like I could have...
And some other ones
And
as
so
well.
we could have done 10 more minutes of these posts. I picked like my 3 favorite ones, okay? But we could have done 10 more minutes of these and just read these, like masterpiece theater music. We need a cleansing around here. We've tried to do our part, but I don't have the platform Dan Bongino does. He can take some trash out. I'm not going to be capable of doing. So I chose this topic because I'm genuinely torn. And I just wanted to hear from 3 men I know, respect, who I also know will be very honest with you and me. And now I'm going to shut up and listen to wisdom in a multitude of counsel. I'm confident with what I'm doing with Tucker. He is deconstructing, and he is deconstructing some of our own audience, and that needs to be confronted. I have no idea what's going on with Megyn Kelly. I'm fine just ignoring her. She's been kind to me, but for years I didn't really follow her work. So whatever she's doing, whatever, Groiper titillation, skirt, lifting she wants to do, I'm just fine muting that and moving on. All right. Dan, I'm very conflicted with because we need him. I love him, but there's a couple things here in the last year I'm very unsure about. So with that, gentlemen, speak to me. The floor is yours.
Well, listen, first of all, it's not just 2 guys named Steve, you and Steve Friend. It's the majority of the conservative base is more frustrated with the Justice Department and the FBI. Am I over the target here than any other area within the government?
Probably.
Okay, so,
yeah.
And Dan did not get dragooned into working there. He chose to go work there. So if there's any attempt, and it's not because it's Dan Bongino, this is just dude code. If there's any attempt to just kind of like go back to him hosting his show like that never really happened and answering questions when you saw things, it doesn't mean you have to sell out the Trump administration, but that's just simply not going to cut it. And also, while the approach and all those, he's a strong-willed guy. He's a tough guy. I don't begrudge him any of that. But this better just not be like, I don't care about Matt Gaetz. I really never did. But this can't be a perpetual pissing contest. Like, I'm just better than you. You showed the goods. The reason you are Dan Bongino now, you actually showed the goods in Russian collusion. Right now, this is mostly just talk. And that's not going to be good enough for going forward because of what Steve said. We do need the best Dan Bongino.
I think ultimately the people in this ecosystem, meaning both, I think just the listener base, whatever the movement is these days, they will ultimately decide this. This is something that I don't think any voice will be able to decide. Now, if they're willing to tolerate or understand, or if they even know and say, you know what, you went in there, maybe you didn't give it your best shot, maybe you did. We kind of already knew this thing was toast. The FBI needs to go away, or because it's not going to be reformed. I think it just depends on where people were already even before Dan Bongino took over the deputy director position. I think that's going to say a lot about Bongino's future. Nevertheless, I do appreciate, and it's kind of surprising that right out the gate, that it seems like he's had a lot of things that he's wanted to say, but has not been able to, and he's kind of just letting it go and letting it all hang out.
Tim,
Steve,
what say
I've
you?
said things to you on the phone that I think sometimes you don't believe, and then they come true, and then you go, "Oh, come on."
It's not that I don't want to believe them. I don't want them to come true. I don't want you to be right. That's really what it is.
I'm always right. Unfortunately, I'm always right. I'm going to let all these people fight, and I'm going to let them all do what they want to do. I'm not going to really weigh in on anyone here. I know that you, like you said, you have a relationship with Dan. I've known him to be kind of whiny in the past and complaining about things and very sensitive. I'm going to let him and Matt Gaetz fight. Do it. I'm going to let Tucker and Megyn and whoever else they want to fight. Let them fight. Let them weed themselves out. happy to not have the audiences who support, Hamas regimes or support people who take money from Qatar. I'm one of these people in the influencer class, which I hate to say that I'm a part of because I'm old media too, who doesn't take money from foreign governments at all. I'm grateful that on the DOJ and the Epstein file thing, that somebody in the White House doesn't like me to the point that I didn't get the invite to get an empty binder and look like a goof like all those influencers who went to the White House very early on. Never forget that happened when they used the useful idiot crowd for a photo op with empty binders of Epstein files that they said were going to be new and groundbreaking. Also, why would you give them to influencers? It's insane. It's stupid. So I am going to sit on the Hill in I don't think it's a civil war. I think it's just a bunch of entertainers entertaining. They can fight with each other, and I think it's probably great for clicks. Steve, if your ratings go down, which they would not do, if you ever want to start a fake fight with me, we can do it. Maybe we can make some money out of it. But that's ultimately what I think is happening here. But overall, it's just kind of disappointing to watch people support people who are bad people. And I'm not saying Dan's a bad person, but other folks. And it's just been kind of shocking to watch audiences follow these people.
That begs a follow-up question I wish we had more time to ask, but let me ask it anyway and give you guys, because we're up against the break here in about 3 minutes. Where would we have our audiences go instead?
I like your show. I'll be honest with you, and it's not just because we're friends, and it's not just because I'm on it. But places like there need to be more used. There need to be more people who are legitimately grounded in Christianity, who stand up for what they believe in, and talk about the evil in the world. We need more versions of you.
I greatly appreciate that, my friend. And as soon as I asked that, I realized, man, I'm setting this up to be very self-serving, and that was not my intent, because I'm actually in the same kind of influencer class. It's just kind of what we all do now, and it's just a matter of how you're influencing people. What I meant was, if we're not going to send them to influencers, that's really what I meant. Not those few in particular who would replace those few, okay? But if we're not going to send them to influencers, where would we send our people? We're all consumers of content too. Where would we go?
The pastors and the pulpits are ready and willing to.
Yeah, that's my question. Where I don't know where we take.
Well, the people who are at least willing to admit they were wrong. There's no sin in being wrong in this political landscape right now. If he just says, man,
I did the best I could.
I thought I could do more, but I had my eyes open in ways, and quite frankly, I can't tell you about all those ways for various reasons because of the collateral damage. But see, I'm not getting a whiff of that. Dan, on some level, no one's going to believe if you just said, I went in there and America first and it was an awesome... No one... That's going to be a lie that you wouldn't have accepted. So don't ask us to.
But people will believe that. Audiences will believe that. I'm so disappointed in people. With the Groyper stuff and everything else that's going on, people are just following along. And I thought people were smarter than that. They aren't. That's been one of the most disappointing things over the past couple of years that I've observed.
I thought the burning follow-up question was, being that you're part of this influencer class, Tim, do you know how you could hook up our show with some of that foreign money?
Man, you know what? If things go bad, you'll see me going over to Qatar and living it up. They'll probably give me a Ferrari and a fat check.
Let's get to the exit question. 12 months from now, where's all this at?
Oh, I have no idea.
Everybody's around still fighting.
It's just still going on?
I have no idea. I'm not going to even try to be smart enough to figure that out.
What do you think the odds are that Tim is correct? 50-50?
I'll move it up. I'll add more. I bet Nick Fuentes gets a bigger audience out of it. He shouldn't, but he's going to.
I mean, he's got Megyn as his press agent right now as we speak. Megyn Kelly's promoting him.
Growing.
Yeah.
Yeah, 50-50 at least. Even odds.
Aaron, what do you think all this is at the end of this year?
Pretty much where it is right now, unfortunately. I'd like to be surprised, but I'm not holding out much hope.
You guys did help with my conflict. I'm still very conflicted, so thank you for that. All right, when we come back, some huge decisions on the horizon from the Supreme Court. We'll get a preview and discuss next.
The Steve Deace Show.
All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, powered by our friends over at Jace Medical. They've been with us for the last few years. They came on board at the tail end of the scamdemic. They were concerned when they saw what the spirit of the age was doing to medications like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. And they thought, hey, if ivermectin, a drug they had just given a few years prior to this a Nobel Prize to, can suddenly be completely deconstructed and denigrated, why wouldn't they do that with more venerable medications like penicillin and other great antibiotics of lore? And so that's where the original idea for Jace came from, to make sure that you are ready for the next time that can never happen here, happens here again and again. Now, over the years, they have greatly expanded their repertoire. They're into all kinds of preparedness ideas and situations now to make sure that you are ready to go with critical first aid, customizable Jace cases now. They've expanded it to make sure that medications that you and your family may need for your specific situation, should there be a crisis, you've got a backup plan for those as well. And yes, that does include the aforementioned ivermectin. All right, so if you use my last name, Dace, as your promo code at checkout, you'll get a discount on your order at jace.com, Jase, promo code DACE for a discount at jace.com. DEACE is your discount at jase.com. All right, we welcome back in our good friend, conservative comedian Tim Young, as we march on with your weekly look at the week that was. Issue 3, some Supreme rulings.
No tariff decision at the Supreme Court this morning, but 3 key cases remain on the horizon. One, which deals with the aforementioned tariffs, could seriously constrain the executive's power to levy such measures in order to effect better trade deals or other outcomes. Another case deals with the Voting Rights Act, the outcome of which, if it goes favorably, could essentially make Democrat representatives in the South and other places an endangered species if Republicans play their cards right. It would get rid of race-based redistricting, which should be a boon for Republicans. And then there's another case we're waiting to hear the results of, dealing with the concept of birthright citizenship and whether the Constitution implies that anybody and everybody who happens to be born on United States soil is automatically a U.S. citizen. The outcome of that case could essentially decide the future of the country, whether we're just an economic zone and a birthing center for the third world, or we're actually, a country worth saving.
And then I think, isn't there one more on the districting, I believe?
Isn't that the Voting Rights Act?
Is that the same one?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, all right. So these are 3 massive opinions due. They're saying now, I think I just read Wednesday.
Correct.
All right. So that just came out while we're even during the commercial break. So by this time next week, we're going to get rulings on 3 cases that could very well determine the next election, maybe the next several elections, in fact. All right. So which of these cases in particular are you the most interested in, and why? Todd, I'll start with you.
Interested in all. I do think birthright citizenship, because the way our legal system grinds, whether we agree with it or not, Steve, you've done entire shows about the fraud of birthright citizenship, but it's even amongst conservative legal eagles, they've been programmed a certain way for so long that if in deporting everybody who needs to be deported, and if they can say you're deporting American citizens, that's a problem. Now, if this goes away, as it should, though, then we are in the area with Roe versus conservatives. You are without excuse. And as you said, you clearly had no game plan after Roe to the pro-life movement. How serious are you now? Because now it's just go time. And if you want to demoralize your base, as you discussed earlier this week in another context, my goodness, if you have this impediment stripped away and you just don't dial deportations up to 11, people are just going to say, nothing matters.
Tim, what about you? He's on birthright citizenship. What about you?
The reason I make fun of Todd is because I agree with him so much. I agree with him 100%. I like that, if we get a ruling in our favor on the birthright citizenship, it takes away that talking point of you're deporting Americans, you're ripping families apart. Get them all out of here. We should not have destination births to create American citizens. We're in a bad space now. With all of the people who now have crossed the border illegally, the millions that are here and we know that Islam is going to try to produce as many children as possible to overpopulate and take over America and the West. We need to win that birthright citizenship case.
2 for 2, birthright citizenship. What about you, Aaron?
Birthright citizenship as well, but I just will say this. When it comes to the tariffs, essentially, I'm sure it's more complicated than this, and anybody who is more of a legal beagle than I am will probably be yelling at their TVs right now or yelling at their streaming devices right now. And yes, I know that I'm making a slippery slope argument here, but what do we say about slippery slope? Undefeated. This is basically, if they rule against Trump, it's going to be an orange man bad ruling. Because what's going to happen is the courts are going to say, oh, it actually needs to be the Congress's job to, inflict tariffs on other and make trade deals with other countries. Yes, Congress really looks like a body who's ready and willing to make votes on tariffs, should we need them for other countries. No, what's actually going to happen is that Congress will actually move on tariffs. They're just going to create some sort of unelected bureaucracy that's going to decide which countries get tariffed and which don't. And those bureaucrats will be, of course, bought off by those same countries. That's what's going to happen. Mark my words. So that's a close second for me.
Let's expand on that for a second, because I think listen, I agree that in terms of the overarching narrative of what it means to be a country, the birthright citizenship question is the most impactful one. But I would argue the one that we would feel the most immediate impact from would be the tariff ruling. Because all the birthright citizenship one will decide is if the current default scam we've all been living under for decades will continue or not. It won't take anything away, pardon me, it won't take anything away that someone meaningful on our side like President Trump is trying to use offensively to change the situation. You see what I'm saying? That's already an ingredient in the cake, is the birthright citizenship. We're the ones trying to get around it and change it. In the case of the tariff ruling, that would take a legitimate policy cudgel currently being used by this president for influence, not just economically, but comprehensively, when geopolitically, take that off the table. What happens to all of that revenue?
Well,
I mean, you see what I'm saying? What to me, I'm even beyond the ruling. What do they say the remedies are then? All right, countries just stop paying. We give them the money back. All right. I mean, to me, I think that what we would feel the most in the immediate would be the tariff ruling, I think.
I think you're right. But as I said with birthright citizenship, if it's gone, that could boomerang back on conservatives. You strip this away. Listen, tariffs, it's still up in the air how much they are working right now and how much they could ultimately work. But let's say the fact that they're working okay. They strip this away and everything bottoms out. This could boomerang back on the Democrats.
Explain how.
If they are working...
you mean if they took them away and things got worse? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's significantly worse, which for the reasons you're talking about and other reasons, I think they could.
Actually, I'm going to save this for my prediction. Never mind.
Okay.
Forget I said anything.
Let me reset something, though, I was told by someone who's, I'll just say, more aware of the White House's economic plans than I would be. What I was told last fall, when this case got before the court, hey, what is Plan B? And I asked this person, and this person said, if you think the price of gold is something now, wait, that is Plan B. What you will see now is a massive pump and dump from our government of gold and silver. It'll skyrocket all the more, and then they'll do a huge sell-off to compensate for the revenues lost by what's happened with the tariffs. That was what I was told would be Plan B. Tim, you have any thoughts on any of this at all where the tariffs are concerned?
No, I just want my Japanese my Pokemon cards not to go up in price. So let's keep the tariffs where they are.
Todd, your thoughts?
I try.
Indeed. All right, let's get to the exit question. All right. 1 year from now, at the end, same question I asked in the Bongino topic. At the end of the year, what will be the impact that the average person in this audience will experience from what you anticipate these rulings are going to be?
At the end of this year?
Yes.
Negligible.
Really? Why?
Part of this has to do with my prediction, so I want to say that.
All right, save that then. All right, Todd.
Unless the economy gets much worse because of a decision on tariffs, I would agree with Aaron, but it's because of Tim's logic, his disappointment with the people. Who's even paying attention to this conversation, broadly speaking? Do the normies even know? Do they care? No. Are they being entertained sufficiently that they don't think they have to? So yeah, I don't know.
What about you, Tim? I'm going to come back to you in just a second on that. But Tim, how would you answer?
people are too stupid to pay attention. Todd's right. I want to, I don't want to sound like I'm an intellectual superior or think that I'm more superior to other people, but people just don't pay attention and they're so entertained by stupid stuff. They're just, no one's going to just feel anything because they don't care and they don't know.
Then let's do a double back real quick to the previous topic. All right. Is it just as simple as this is actually how you build a massive audience these days? Yeah. Is that just the majority of the potential audience we could reach just really wants more soap opera and melodrama than they actually do substance?
That's the mind-numbingly beat your head up against a brick wall part of this that I keep coming back to, is that the way to build a massive audience is by just keeping that dopamine rush of saying and believing and entertaining the most bombastic, bass-ackwards things and propagate that out to as many people as possible. That's how you build an audience.
We've all seen Idiocracy.
Yeah. We have. Might need a reset, maybe. But I'm just never doing that. I don't want to. I make a nice living. I don't want to be rich that bad. I would hate myself and
Amen.
Not be able to look at my adult children in the eye and expect them to return the favor. So
I'm going to start picking fights because it's good money. So forget you, Steve, and your morals and values. I'm going to start fighting with people. I don't know who I want to pick one with, but not Todd. He's not big enough. But somebody else I'll fight with.
Start Ayatollah. Let's start with the Ayatollah, maybe. All right, let's start there. Let's get to our kicker topic really quick. If you could pick one country to add to our ever-growing, and I am completely supportive of, American empire as a vassal state, we welcome Venezuela. Looks like Greenland is in the queue. Maybe Colombia next. Which country would it be and why, Aaron?
Cuba, 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 Cuba. I mean,
affirm.
I've seen
support
the pictures of that place. If it weren't a communist hellhole, that would be amazing potential.
Yes.
A great vacation destination, probably even better than Hawaii. So I would go with Cuba.
Listen, you can't get these young single women to vote Republican because they want to abort all their babies. You start offering them spring break Cuba. I don't know, guys. Might be 2 or 3 points of voters right there. Okay, the vassal state of Cuba, spring break Cuba. What do you think? Use their comfort against them. What do you think?
Listen, I want Somalia. I want us to take Somalia, and I want to go run daycares there. I'm taking it back. I'm bringing it back. I'm bringing that money back home.
I want to send Tim. I want to do a reality TV show where Tim Young goes and audits Somalia. Yes, I'm in.
Yeah,
the real daycares of Somalia.
Yes.
The real daycares of Somalia, starring Tim Young.
You look up the Somali daycare addresses for the actual country. It's just some GPS coordinates out like 5 miles off the coast. Some abandoned ghost ship.
Yes. Yes.
The misspellings, too. We're going to keep the misspellings, the whole thing.
You go on your phone, address to the local Somali daycare. They give you longitude and latitude.
Yes.
It's not an address.
Who's the guy that started Survivor? Mark, whatever the guy.
Yes.
He's Tim Young is the next guy.
There you go.
Mark Burnett.
Mark Burnett. Yes. What about you, Todd? What country would you add to our growing
Canada.
American
resources? Empire? A and B, they deserve it.
Agree. You guys, these are all excellent suggestions. I agree. All right, let's get to predictions. Aaron, I'm going to let you go first. You got time to flesh this out. You've pumped this thing up a couple times already.
I was just thinking about this as Todd was talking about the tariff issue. I think my prediction is when this does come down, it's going to be billed as ruling against Trump, but ultimately it might be one of the most inconsequential Supreme Court rulings in the history of the court. Here's what I think they're going to do. They're going to say, Donald Trump or any future president, you should not use tariffs the way you have to the degree that you have. But because of all the carnage that it would cause by trying to refund all of these tariffs already, you can keep them into place. What's going to happen with future presidents is that they might roll back some of the tariffs, but they might come back and say, hey, the Supreme Court already ruled we can tariff this country at this level and this country at this level, so we're just going to jack the tariffs back up again. You see what I'm saying? It's going to be utterly inconsequential in the long run.
It's not in the courts because it's illegal. It's in the courts because it actually works on some level. Yes.
Yeah. That's a great point, Todd. If the perception was these things were flailing and there were soup lines in America, would the Supreme Court be entertaining this?
No.
They wouldn't feel like they had to.
No.
The concern is about the precedent being set here. That's a fascinating prediction, Aaron. You're right. You were good to hype that. That was very interesting. Todd, yours.
The Minnesota legislature will at least vote this year on seceding from the union.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know a few members of the Minnesota legislature that I think would mind.
Just remember, there are white women crying in the street saying, maybe I do deserve to be die just because I'm white. They're that crazy, stupid, insane, diabolical, demonic. Yes, this might happen.
Tim.
Megyn Kelly announces that she's going to buy a house down the street from Tucker in Doha.
Here's the thing. Okay. Tim, this is just for you and I. All right. You and I you've done more of it than me. I'm just now, it's kind of funny. I'm just kind of now in the last year or two getting invited to some of the conservative conference circuit. Well, really, it's just because of Charlie and TPUSA. Still, nobody else will have me, frankly. All right. So usually I have to do events where people just book me. But you and I have spoken all over the country. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. We have significant sized audiences. We have met large swaths of our audiences and communicated with them. Okay. Who are the people that want Islam is great and Qatar is a vacation hot? Who are these people, Tim? Who are they? Who are they? I totally get why I get why particularly QAnon moms with a lot of money, our version of wine moms, bought into what Candace was doing with I get that. That's supermarket tabloids. That's that's chicks that want to know the dish and the tea. It's demonic and satanic, but I get it. What I don't get is who's the audience for? Have you guys reconsidered Hitler? And Islam actually is our friend, and Qatar's a garden spot. Have you met any of these people? Who are they?
The audience is the people of the Iranian regime. When they turn off all the televisions and the internet, they can run you on repeat.
That happened yesterday, folks. That happened yesterday. They turned off all communications, and on Iranian state television yesterday, they were running Tucker Carlson. That legit actually occurred. It's not a joke. That happened yesterday.
Well, you're asking a question that's clearly part of the Sola versus Sola wars. I don't know what percentage it is, but there's a percentage of Reformed Christianity that is drunk on this stuff.
I mean, who is clicking on let's retcon Islam? I've never met any of these people. I've spoken at Reformed churches and Reformed events all over the country. I have no idea who this is. It boggles the mind. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
No problem.
I mean, the numbers are there. I just don't know who these numbers. I don't know who these people are. I've just never met them anywhere in my travels in America. Feedback Friday is next. All right, we are back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast with Aaron McIntyre and Todders, and I'm Steve Deace. Don't forget to let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox by emailing us, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Instagram, and TikTok. You can also find me, if you want, on our new YouTube channel at Deace Show on YouTube. That's at Deace Show on YouTube. And then finally, please, if you love the show, leave us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate that. Tens of thousands of you have done that. Thank you for each and every single one. They are all appreciative. And then also you can hit subscribe, or if you're on Apple iTunes, follow. And that's how you're going to know that every time you and I come together, the three of us, I should say, not just you and I, there's three of us. The collective we come together to do one of these shows. It'll be there in your feed every single time, and many more of those, many more of you have done that for us too. So thank you very much for each and every one of those. And thanks to our friends over in the American airline industry and the bug going around. This now will be the first speaking engagement that I'll do in 2026. Join us at Life or Death Con in Washington, D.C. with my guy, Seth Gruber, his event. Going to be there with Megan Basham, Abby Johnson, and many more. That is coming up on January the 22nd. That's a Thursday in D.C. I'm going to be speaking that afternoon after the show. Look forward to seeing as many of you as absolutely possible. It is time now to take back our country, culture, communities, town by town, church by church, home by home. You want to be a part of that? We'd love to have you there. And you can get 20% off your ticket right now with the code STEVE when you go to Life or Death Con, CON, CON as in Nancy, lifeordeathcon.com. Get the code Steve for 20% off. Hope to see you there. January the 22nd, just about, 2 weeks from now. All right, January the 22nd there in our nation's capital. All right, join us in D.C. for this event, lifeordeathcon.com. Use the promo code Steve for 20% off your ticket. All right, between our travels and everything else, vacation, holidays, we haven't done one of these in a while. Y'all ready for some Feedback Friday?
What's the over-under?
You bet.
All right.
2, 3?
2.5. Got to pick a whole number.
Okay.
2.5. I'm going to go over. I don't think it'll be much over, but I'm going to go over.
Okay.
This one we're going to start, though, and it's a little lengthy, but I think you need to hear this. This is a heart of a young woman in our audience, addressing where we are with the young men from the other side of the vantage point. That's why I think we should indulge the length of this one a little bit.
Okay.
All right. I am a 20-year-old female college student. Wanted to share some of my experience that I think might provide some nuance to you guys' thoughts about where the young men are right now as it pertains particularly to the dating world. For context, I grew up in a very liberal metropolitan area in the South where I graduated from a large and liberal public high school, and I now attend a private Christian university in a more rural area. I can't deny the statistics that you've shared about how women are becoming more and more left and men are becoming more and more right, particularly in my generation. My experience in a very liberal public high school, at least somewhat anecdotally, supports your statistics as well. Although most people were liberal, the girls were definitely more vocal and extreme. But at the Bible-believing church I attended during most of my teenage years, the youth ministry, which had several hundred regular attendees, had a female-to-male ratio of at least 2 to 1 and probably higher. It was always the girls who were serious enough about their faith to actually show up to church. Now, my university has 53% female students, which is below the national average of 60. On the surface, you might think that this underrepresentation of men in higher education is as a result of their disillusion with the liberal higher education, and I would agree that's at least part of it. But another interesting fact is that among students who begin college, females are just much more likely to complete their degrees. I am a recipient of a full academic scholarship, which is awarded to just about 10 students per class at my university. In addition to the academic requirements for the scholarship, prospective recipients are interviewed, and their Christian witness is a significant factor. The students who have been given this scholarship typically demonstrate 2 qualities. Number 1, they have a lot of intellectual depth to their faith. And number 2, they are very bold in sharing the gospel and speaking truth. Amongst the 40 people in the cohort who applied for these scholarships, only 12 were male. While I know this is anecdotal, it does at least seem to give some credence to your frequent argument that men need to step up and stop acting like boys. The biggest connection that I'm seeing across all of this is that women in my generation are more likely to take a firm and vocal stand for what they believe in, regardless of which side of the aisle they're on, while men are more likely to be passive. Well, sister, this is why we needed a Moms for Liberty, because there weren't enough dads for liberty. So what she is saying is, yes, you are seeing the women are getting more liberal, but they're really just getting more active and vocal regardless of which side that they're on, is what she is saying. One last piece of anecdotal evidence that I think supports this idea is that almost without fail, when I talk to a female friend who has recently gone through a breakup, her biggest complaint is that her ex-boyfriend wasn't willing to be the spiritual leader in their relationship. At least at my private Christian school, women are desperate for strong men who will actually give them something to submit to, but they largely can't find any. So while the boys in my generation might be more conservative and might want to have families more than the girls, it seems that many of the boys have no idea how to actually act like men and be the leaders that their future families will need. On a personal note, thank you guys for helping me to grieve Charlie Kirk. I had so much going on with school when he was martyred that I didn't feel like I even had time to process it all. The first chance I actually got to listen to any coverage was at 11 p.m. on 9/11, and the first thing I did was replay you guys' show from that day. I sat in my car and cried with you guys. While it was certainly very painful, it was also very cathartic. Never stop going hard. That is from Gwen Langford.
Gwen? That's her name?
Gwen, yes.
Brilliant. She understands all of it. I've been saying this for a very long time. Yes, the men are, generally speaking, on that graph we showed, are more conservative than the liberal woke dreck. But does that mean they are latching on to anything that is ultimately good, true, and beautiful, sustainable. And she's absolutely right. Yes, women are more woke, but of the ones who aren't woke, are that's the part we've kind of ignored. Are they more deeply rooted at that young age in their faith often than men? Absolutely. You have absolutely nailed this. And to the young men, why? You're only giving me, like I needed any more reason? Young men are deeply addicted to their idols of comfort. Why do you think I talk about fantasy football, toy lightsabers, and video games? Sister, that's why. You totally get this. And until we deal with that, we aren't going anywhere sustainable. That is one of the finest letters we've ever had, and it's from somebody who's 20 years old. See, we are without excuse. The answers are all out there. The only question is, do we want them or not, especially within the church?
Aaron, you have any thoughts before I chime in?
I think these are things, I think the observation that was just discussed, it's about 80 to 85% odds that this is more the norm than not. Who are the young men? Again, I keep coming back to this. Who are the young men that we are talking about? Are we talking about them as a whole? Are we talking about the young men raised in Christian homes who are self-professing Christians? If that is who we're talking about, the latter group, self-professing Christian young men, I absolutely think if they fit the bill of what was just described there needs to be a whole heaping helping of repentance and stepping up. If it's the young men as a whole, then that's maybe a different story. There does need to be repentance, don't get me wrong, but there's a different standard for the self-professed Christians, and I think that's who she is talking about, the self-professing Christian
Correct.
young men.
Correct.
That's deeply disturbing. I'll leave it at that.
So this touches on, I said during the course of a lot of last year, it's not enough to be based. What are you based on? Who are you based in? Okay? And a lot of what we're seeing from young men is reactionary. Now, it is the right reaction. I don't want to be a gay race communist. And that is a very key first step, okay? That is a very key first step. And the way that men are wired, it often takes a great amount of suffering and or anger at his current situation and prospects to get a son of Adam, to seek something different, to seek out change and a paradigm shift. Okay? Which is why when you get into the military, what's the first thing they do when you get in there? What do they do first?
Break you down.
So they can do what?
Build you up.
Build you up. Every great coach you've ever had, what was the first thing he did? Same thing. Broke you down. So he could do what? Build you back up. Same thing. A lot of the same principles. Because in many of those kinds of cases, who are you mentoring mostly, men or women? Men. And men need to often be broken down and realize how broken they are before they will look up or let you build them up. All right? So I think we have clearly in the last couple of years taken a key first step with the young men, and Charlie was a key cog where that was concerned. But we were always going to reach the place where it wasn't a brother, an older brother that these young men needed, but a dad. We were always going to reach that. And this is why I said it. This is why I said at when I was eulogizing Charlie at America Fest, that if you want to see the mission that Charlie began with our young men completed successfully, it will be the older men completing their missions successfully that will determine this. We have skipped a generation of masculine leadership in America. And so because of that, there's no automatic modeling. That means there's no built-in expectation and baseline of what's expected of me as a young man that I have to live up to. It's not there. And so the question then becomes, and the battle becomes, what figures will then fill the void of demonstrating that guidance? Will it be Charlie? Will it be Nick Fuentes? I'm here to tell you, actually, it won't be either one. And it can't be either one for different reasons. It cannot be Charlie because they murdered him. And so the younger men are now never going to get to see Charlie finish his race. Now, he was instrumental in getting them onto the field of play. All right, for we older men, we've not earned the right for these younger men to look up to us. We've not earned that right. And in fact, I would actually go back at Todd and say, frankly think it's you and I's generation, the Gen X generation, that is still way more likely to be playing with toy lightsabers and all the things that you're lamenting than the younger men are at this point.
Oh, I'm not going to argue with our generation either. We're addicted to it.
Yeah, so I don't. The older men have not earned the right for some automatic level of deference from the younger men. We've not collectively earned it. This is why it took a younger man like Charlie to get these younger men back on the field of play of manhood. But it was always going to be about, because this is what men need. Men are task, goal-oriented creatures. Significance-driven creatures. If men don't know what the end is, they won't fight. They won't take the journey to get there. If you want to play hard to get, that's great. But if you so discourage a man, he'll just stop asking because he's taken enough rejection and he'll move on. Men live fight or flight in all things. That's how we're wired as men. And so if a man does not know, a man has to think back to front. A man needs to think, what is the end I want? That's why every man, the minute a man has cognitive processing in his brain, 18 months, 8 years, whatever it is, to the day that cognitive processing ceases, he looks at every situation and he thinks the following. What is the game? What are the rules? Who's keeping score? How do I win? Every man does. Regardless of language, religion, every man thinks this way if they're of sound mind and body. So you have to show men what the end is so that they will then see it's worth striving for to get there. What Charlie was demonstrating was the beginning of the race. He was 32. He had built something with his own hands from nothing. His own shoe leather, relationships, giftedness, favor, luck, all the combinations of things that lead to greatness. He was married and just beginning a family. He was modeling what he was preaching in the real. And that got a lot of young men onto the field of play of manhood. But that was never going to be enough. Because if men don't know what the end is, they start to stray. They start to look around. Am I wasting my time? Did I choose the wrong path? Am I on the right? Am I on the right field? Is this going to end the way that I want it to? And this is why I said while eulogizing Charlie, it's going to be the older men. Those of you who are boomers, you're in your third act. Those of us who are Gen Xers, we are beginning our third act. We are going to decide what happens with the young men. Will we first grow up? Will we first finish our race so that they can then see everything that the likes of Charlie was saying to them is true? Because we demonstrated on the back end the investment, the payoff for the commitment that Charlie was urging them to on the front end. That's how this math was always going to work. And I can tell you this, Charlie saw that. And it's one of the reasons why him and I got to be very good friends in the last year plus. And we had these kinds of conversations. As well as the other conversation I'm about to have. If the older men do not do this and do not commit to this, the younger men are going to stray. And they're going to think it's not worth it. And that's when they're going to listen to voices of nihilism like Nick Fuentes. And that's when it's not, right now, your anger is not constructive, but it is destructive. And it's a very fine line with men. The same instincts that will cause that man to lay down his life for you ladies. If those instincts are not properly discipled and properly guided, those same instincts is what will cause that same man to later on tear down everything around you. And that's the knife's edge that we're on right now. So whatever clicks people like Megyn Kelly are getting for lifting their skirts up for the likes of Nick Fuentes, I hope the immediate, or Tucker or the rest of them, I hope the immediate payoff, well, he's got some great ideas. This retard's got some great ideas. Lots of retards have great ideas, they think. But they probably can't get you the clicks you want, so you're probably not putting them on your show or talking about them, probably, right?
Right.
So I hope all the cynical, instant gratification, $25,000 live reads that you guys are getting from wherever the hell these clicks come from for these people. I hope you understand what the cost on the back end will be of this. Because whether you intend to do it or not, you are actually pushing back on Charlie's legacy when you do this. You are. And I've got the signal chats on my phone that I've saved from my dead friend about his concern about this very thing from the likes of Fuentes and the Groypers. I can show them to you if you want. Because these were the last conversations him and I had right before he was murdered. Because he knew, if we do not get the young men on the straight and narrow path. See, here's the thing. Here's the worst thing that can happen. Let me tell you a story. I used to tell this story years ago. It's been a few years since I've told this one on the show. Good friend of mine used to serve on Capitol Hill for one of the most conservative members of Congress. One of my very best friends. And him and a bunch of the other congressional aides to the conservative members of Congress, they wanted to get self-defense training in Marion Barry's Washington, D.C. So they bring in a SEAL who's retired, and he's going to teach them defense training. And the first thing, here's the first lesson he teaches this class. He says, hey, raise your hand if you know for sure you are willing to use a weapon to take another life. And anybody who didn't raise their hands, he refunded their money and kicked them out of the class. And the reason being was, he said, listen, if I train you to use this weapon, and then you have one, but you don't have what it takes to use it when the time comes, you are more dangerous than if you're unarmed. Because the perp will take your weapon and use it against you and the loved ones that you thought you were there to protect, and you found out you don't have what it takes. Meaning the worst thing I could do is gin up these masculine instincts in you, but then in the end, and if you don't, listen, there's all kinds of great men who don't have what it takes to pull the trigger. They're called priests and chaplains. They're great men too. They're doing the Lord's work. But this just isn't the field for them. You see what I'm trying to say? There's nothing wrong with that. Just not your calling. You're not weak. It's just not your place. But his point was, if I gin this up in you, but you don't have what it takes to fulfill that, you're more dangerous with a loaded weapon you're not willing to use than if you were just completely unarmed from that point forward. And the same thing, this instinct applies here too. If we get our young men all ginned up, but then we don't guide them onto the right path, they are more dangerous to us than they were when they were passive. Because then they'll turn on us. And those same instincts, that knife's edge. How many of you in our audience have ever raised a young man into a man? And what you're going to see, and Aaron, you will see this soon from Ben. If you haven't already seen it yet, wouldn't surprise me, right? It doesn't take much. They're not that old. It doesn't take till they're teenagers. But even your adorable little boys will get this little look in his eye one day and he'll say, I don't think you got it. I think I'm going to call this one just to see what you will do. And the key for a good dad is, number one, you don't want to snuff that instinct out because it's that wild look in his face that'll cause him to leap tall buildings in a single bound, jump on grenades for the innocent, put himself in front of a wife and a kid when the bullets start flying. Eat the crap sandwich and take a know-nothing job to make sure that there's a roof over your head and food on your table, even though he gets nothing emotionally or significance out of it at all, except that's his duty to you. See, that same instinct that he has that makes him question the old man like that is what will later, if it's rightly divided, if it's rightly discipled, will cause him to be the kind of man you want and desire. And so the key for a good dad is you can't don't do that to me, because I'll teach you what the chain of command is. But you don't want to snuff it out totally, so you emasculate him at the same time. So you put him in positions where there's a little danger. You put him in positions where there's some risk to take. You put him in some positions where he might get hit back. Because that instinct, you want to grow and nurture it, but in the right direction. And if you don't, though, that young man is now more dangerous to you and himself than anybody else. And what you do when you play with the likes of Fuentes for cynical clicks, for whatever the current, the rationale, craven rationale may be now, you feed enough of that into the water table of our young men, and what ends up happening now is that instinct, it doesn't become constructive. They don't become Navy SEALs. They do the opposite. And they turn on you and your culture and they light it on fire. For men, there's a thin line between badass and bully. There's a thin line between martyr and kamikaze. And often, it takes a relationship with a father or father figure and the Heavenly Father to determine which side of that line you end up on. I think we have a dearth of those in this last generation, do we not?
Absolutely.
And that's the void that must be filled, and only the old men can fill that void. But you have to find yourself worthy of the calling you received first. And that is why whether the old men or not will finish our race will determine what ultimately happens right now, this moment with the young men. You guys have any thoughts on that before I move on?
I'll just bring it full circle. I mean, that just a incredible letter, thoughtful, being very realistic about the lay of the land, which is the only way forward. We're painting a fictional universe for ourselves that has nothing to do with almost all of human history as it applies to what makes men flourish. Being a man is not a leisure pursuit. You didn't have the luxury, unless you were wealthy, of engaging that leisure pursuit at length in the past. Now it's become our whole reason for existing. That's never going to work.
I want to reset something that I said at the end of the summer, because I think it has everything to do with what you just laid out, Steve. In the aftermath of the deaths of James Dobson, of John MacArthur, of Vodi Bakum, not to mention Charlie Kirk, didn't it seem like a message was being sent supernaturally? You can't outsource this anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Can't outsource this anymore.
No more proxies.
I'm 32, about to be 33. If you're of sound mind and of faith, if you're my age, that's great. If you're younger, that's great. But especially if you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s, you've got one lap, maybe you're on your last lap. It's time to be strong and courageous if you haven't already been. Because all of these things that either through osmosis or whether through some other workings of, you've just kind of outsourced your job. Those jobs are coming back home to your home. It's time to be strong and courageous. Wherever you are on your last lap, about to run your last lap, on your second lap, it's time. I think God was sending that message very clearly last year. It's up to you.
Amen. Let's close this segment with this one because it's a short one, but I think it's something we desperately need on our side. Robert in Tyler, Texas says, do we need an off-ramp for repentance for those who want to repent and say sorry for the choices they've made over the last few years? I now think there are people who much regret but don't feel there's a way to say sorry and believe there can be forgiveness and reconciliation. So they stay locked in some old beliefs and behaviors and they don't think there's any off-ramp for them. How can we do this? I think this could be an answer to a lot of our problems. Completely agree. I mean, to paraphrase Martin Luther's preamble to his 95 Theses, all the Christian life is a life of repentance. On the Catholic side, many of the liturgical traditions they have their intent is to point to this very dynamic, the constant need for repentance and forgiveness, and the humility that goes along with that. And that's a lot of times people define self-righteousness as how confident you are in your beliefs. That's not self-righteousness. Or they think you lack humility if you're confident in your beliefs. That has nothing to do with humility at all. Let me tell you what humility is. Do you know that God is God and you are not? That's where humility starts. That's the alpha and omega of humility. It's not a tone. It's not a temperament. You may walk around with your head down all the time. You're not humble. You've just practiced another form of pietistic idolatry. It's just the other side of the street. And just because you may be very confident in your convictions has nothing to do with a lack of humility. Because it depends on, the humility depends on where do those convictions come from. If they come from yourself, then you're right. And your critics are right. You lack humility. If they come in the confidence in your God and the gifts he has given you and the position and station he has handed to you and put you in place of, then no, that's not a lack of humility. That's conviction and confidence. If only there were like an institution. Can't believe God didn't think of this. Like an institution that could have been placed on the earth and given like a manual, you know? And just that they could like share with others of how we would know these various nuances and why we need them and require them as a species. Can you believe God thought of no such thing? It just seems so simple. I mean, I don't want to sit here and question the Almighty, of course, even though it kind of sounds like we are, but it just seems like of all the things that he would have thought of that too. But alas, we're just down here completely and totally on our own with no guidance or whatsoever, and he's just a kid with an anthill just waiting to see how it all is going to play out. Oh, wait, he gave us one. He gave us an institution, and he did give us a volume or 66 of them. Yeah, he did do that. Or 72, I think it is, if you're on his side of the street. But how will they hear the word if there's no one to teach it to them? Most chilling thing said on this show today was not in Aaron's montage. It's when I asked Tim Young, where would we have our people go if it wasn't to influencers? And Aaron said, we have the churches ready to go. That was the most chilling thing said on this show today, right there. More in a moment.
The Steve Deace Show.
Now you can get a discounted subscription to Blaze TV using my last name, Deace, as your promo code when you go to blazetv.com/Deace. $20 off an annual subscription so you don't miss any of the exclusive coverage that we do here on all of our shows at Blaze TV. blazetv.com/Deace. Promo code Deace for $20 off with the promo code Deace at blazetv.com/Deace. All right, let's continue on with some Feedback Friday. Let's go to this one from Howard Althan. He writes, is it possible that the reason Trump seems way more effective in using his leverage at foreign policy as opposed to domestic policy is that he has more flexibility to alter/destroy our enemy's government institutions than he does our own? He doesn't have to go through Congress nearly as much, and as a natural CEO, he is much more capable of making change via firing people and not going through boards as opposed to leading by committee. I think there's a lot to this, and I know that we have not had a lot of, except for like generals, we've not had a lot of people who completely came from the political outside to the positions of president throughout the history of our country, particularly the business world. And you also have to understand that Trump was not running the kind of corporation with, he was running an empire. He was singularly in charge. All right, so we're not dealing with volumes of vice presidents and regional VPs and shareholder meetings and all the kind of bureaucracy that, you know, a giant Fortune 500 publicly traded CEO has to deal with, which is more in line with what governing looks like. I mean, if you know, Trump could break the cue stick in half and say, we're going to have tryouts anytime he wanted. He was running an empire. Everything was in his name. And that's why you can see, and you saw this in his first term too, even though there were plenty of clumsy personnel hires, but in his first term, for the most part, the things that he could, until COVID, the things that he could directly make a difference, he did for the most part. And you're kind of seeing that now too. We also saw in the first term he was way more influential in paradigm shifts in foreign policy than he was in domestic policy. And we're seeing that again now. And remember, he did have a Republican Congress for the first 2 years of his presidency the first time, like he does now. So I think Howard's kind of onto something. What do you guys think?
Oh, he doesn't go far enough. He's absolutely on something. But the one part he doesn't even mention is he mentions the apparatus. He doesn't mention the American people, though. And who are the problem, Steve, as you've often said?
The people are the problem.
Them.
Yeah.
I mean, we're too distracted. We're too fickle. We actually resent having to get up and take a step. That's your job. You hear people say that all the time. You hear so-called conservatives online all the time. It's your job to do. It's your job to do. What are you doing? Are you attending any of the meetings? Are you applying pressure? In what way, shape, or form other than talking online? This thing called American governance is got to be exhausting for a citizenship who doesn't take that seriously, is that fickle. They're not any better than anybody else.
So this dynamic that is pointed out here is undeniably true. I saw somebody refer to this flippantly a few weeks ago, I think during a Christmas break. He's able to be a dictator abroad and impotent at home. That's basically the dynamic that we're seeing here. It's not just the citizenry on one side of the political aisle. It's the fact that just look at New York City, the financial center of the world, certainly of the United States, largest city in this country. But it's not even in this country. It's not even American, and it hasn't been for a while. So we still have many of the trappings, and we just saw them on full display last weekend, of a superpower. But it seems like a good portion of our country, maybe it's just the 15% of counties that Hillary Clinton lived in, or that won back in 2016. Maybe it's closer to 50% of the country. I don't think it's that high. But there's an entire, not negligible portion of this country that is not in this country, that does not live in this country, that is not American. And then the whatever's left, whatever's right America, whatever is right-wing America, whatever's normie America, who are not in the hardline 15% of counties Hillary Clinton won, whatever Todd just said is right on the money there, just not serious enough to make sure that it's not 15%, that maybe it's 0.5% in the next generation or generation after that. So the dynamic that is diagnosed here is 100% spot on, right on the money. And it's not necessarily to absolve anything, but that's just the reality of the situation as we're seeing it. Not, again, descriptive, not prescriptive.
Agreed. And even if we were in better shape as a people, and we're not, he would still have more sensitivity because he has to face the voters at home. He doesn't have to face the voters of Venezuela, right?
Right.
Doesn't have to face the voters of the UK or Iran or Israel. All right. He faces the voters of America. So there's a built-in sensitivity to that end anyway. But if you come to the point that a country requires the amount of paradigm shift that ours does, then that only can happen because of the condition of the people in our system of government, right? We have a government by the consent of the governed, right? Mm-hmm. And so if a massive paradigm reset or shift is required, that's because the people allowed, that level of diminishment and decomposition to happen on their watch, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's
why people,
that's where we are.
Yes, and that's why people resent when Oran McIntyre we'll talk about monarchy and things like that, and instantly people that will not do anything to be a citizen will call him what, don't you believe in democracy? Well, no, Oran does believe in democracy, quite frankly, a heck of a lot more than the people who say he doesn't, because he's willing to do something. They won't.
Yeah, forms of government are forms. Okay. Our founders were perfectly fine being loyal subjects of the British Empire until they were no longer treated as loyal subjects of the British Empire.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And depending on the philosophy the form of government is birthed out of, has way more to do, and then the philosophy and worldview of those doing the governing has way more to do with the moral condition and level of righteousness in your government than the particular form of government does. I mean, even if you, well, Steve, so you're for oligarchy like communist countries? No, I'm not for a communist oligarchy. But like if we got a handful of, if we had like a handful of great Christian statesmen and got together and said, hey, you know what, we're going to go ahead and make the decisions around here. I kind of think that might be better than what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Or would you, or we can have national elections for U.S. Senate. We can have the senator of California determine whether you've got, in Washington and Rhode Island, whether you've got a border or not. I mean, it comes down to worldview is destiny. Form of government is not destiny. Worldview is destiny. There were plenty of bad kings in the Bible, and there were good kings in the Bible. There's bad democracies, there's good democracies. There's bad oligarchies, there's good oligarchies. There's bad republics, there's good republics. Rome was a republic when it rounded up all the Christians. Okay? I mean, what's the worldview? The worldview is destiny, not the form of government. Now, their ideas of a smaller republican form of government came out of their worldview. Individuals made in the likeness and image of God. Therefore, they have God-given rights. Government should exist to protect and defend those rights. I don't disagree with all that. I've got this thing coming out later this year that's going to go into all kinds of detail for the children. Okay? Why Independence Day? But what's the subtitle of the book? What's the subtitle of the book?
America is great because God is good.
Because God is good. America is great because democracy is good. America is great because voting is good. America is great because the republic is good. Is that what it says? No, because God is good. England's a democracy. They're getting ready to ban X because Elon Musk is letting the platform tell too much truth, and the King of the United Arab Emirates is demanding that any of their immigrants in England can no longer attend British schools because they're too Islamized. And I'm not making that up. It's a real headline. Okay, it's about worldview. Stupid.
You're summing up the plumb line of Proverbs and many other parts of the Bible. Fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom.
It's the beginning of wisdom, correct.
So if you don't start with that, you can't have wisdom in full.
Correct. And let me give you another proverb right back at you, my Catholic brother. If the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Right. Are the foundation now the foundations of our constitutional republic are certainly not destroyed, but are they in a robust status as we speak right now?
They're closer to destroyed.
They're closer to destroyed than robust, but they're at least in some stage of diminishment.
Yes.
And so the form of government can't help you because the worldview is what matters. The worldview is the destiny. It's the worldview that caused the diminishment itself. So worldview is what matters. Is it easy to corrupt one king and therefore corrupt an entire culture? Sure, but then wouldn't the inverse also be true? If you had one righteous king, wouldn't it be also easier to, righteously influence a culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would you rather have? Wouldn't you rather have a righteous people that can withstand an unrighteous government? Sure. But then what if you don't have that, and then you have an unrighteous government? Because that's kind of what we have right now. See what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And what's the one common denominator here? The one constant through all the years, Ray, is that worldview is destiny. Worldview is destiny. What you think about all day long and the way you think about it, you will become, period. Let's close with this. You guys are going to love this one from Keith. Why would an alien civilization travel across unimaginable distances just to play games in our skies? These craft would have to be capable of faster than light travel to cross the distances between their world and ours, and so they travel hundreds of years through interstellar space just to do flips and weave around our planes. Furthermore, no craft of their apparent mass would be able to travel at light speed. Even if they could travel near or at the speed of light, they would experience time dilation during their journey, and this brings up 1,000 more questions. And he's right, which is why a lot of people now are thinking these are interdimensional beings, maybe people from the past or from the future coming into the past because of the questions you're raising. This is a new common theory in the UFO occult arena. How long would a civilization need to have existed to have enough time to develop faster-than-light interstellar engines, find our planet in the vastness of the cosmos, build a ship and launch an expedition? Some speculate that the age is older than what the science community generally accepts as the age of the universe itself. What is their source of fuel that can generate such immense energy needs that their power plants would obviously require to travel such distances and perform such physics-defying maneuvers? Why is every image of the craft in the age of the Hubble Space Telescope era as grainy as the 1970s images of Bigfoot? That's from Keith. Thoughts on those questions?
Oh, Darwinists. What did multiple generations of telling every single level of academia that we're just randomly evolved primates, not special? It's just some sort of weird accident that the Earth is here. What did that get you? All of your would-be adherents believe that we're special now. Again. Either it's interdimensional or it's from another planet. How do you like them apples, you dumbass?
There we go.
Oh, gosh. Our planet is so special. They've come here not to invade all these years. They've been doing this. They're just here to sightsee. They've been here since Roswell in 1947. No alien invasion, no alien armada, no take me to your leader. They've just been here just to sightsee, just to troll. They're just doing Jackass, guys. Intergalactic Jackass, right? They're just Johnny Knoxvilling us around the sky, see what kind of stupid human tricks they can get our various militaries here on this, pathetic planet to fall for. That's all they're doing here.
There's a whole group of people that are apparently as interested in that as people are interested in Candace Owens, though. It's just, the only level of seriousness is Aaron's level of disdain about this. There are no aliens. Enough. This is dumb.
Final thoughts on today's show. Only got like 2 minutes left, and I did get through more than 2.5 notes. I got through 4, in fact.
You did.
I did, yeah.
I just think this, and I need to watch that this weekend as well, the Age of Disclosure.
Yes, we're discussing that on Tuesday.
This is one of the last things that we talked about. I think we talked about this at AmFest. This was our last show of the year, live from AmFest. 2 years ago, Todd and I did the whole bit where we pretend to just leave. I think you were doing a remote show when we were talking about this, so you couldn't tell what we were doing in the studio, and you were just going on this long and lengthy exposition about, UAPs, UFOs, and Todd and I are just so sick of this already that we just pretended to leave. We didn't actually leave. That was a funny bit, haha, and that was how little this interested, because it still seemed like it was a very fringe subject. Now that it is abundantly clear what it is, not to do the whole C.S. Lewis in Screw Tape Letters, having such an infatuation with this that it's unhealthy, or a lack of infatuation with this that it's also unhealthy on the other end. This is definitely something that is not going away. Materialism, I believe, is in the early throes of dying on some level. And so what's going to take over pagan materialism? Mm-hmm. Paganism, the old-fashioned kind. So this is going to be something that we'll have to contend with, and I am more willing. If you would have told me I would be saying this 2 years ago, I would have said you were joking, but I'm absolutely sure that this is something that we need to contend with and smack down when the opportunities and the need arises.
If the case wasn't what our dear friend 20-year-old Gwen said concerning the men, if that wasn't the case, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about alien stories over and over and over again.
100%.
But because it is the case with the men, we are. We're so distracted. And this guy, I reposted it. He's actually a sci-fi writer. And he talked about these liberals in Minneapolis. And he talked about that they're basically all... People have turned themselves into Grok, and Grok really has no worldview. It just recognizes words and applies words to get certain pats on the head.
Or a large language model.
Large language model, yes.
Yeah.
And that's what people are. Even if they're really, really smart intellectually, they're always just using the buzzwords, which is why so many of them became so woke that they cut body parts and arrested you for not taking the jab. That's what we're dealing with. We don't. That's where Steve is exactly right. We don't have any developed worldview, so we never really are weighing and measuring Socratic dialogue. What's right? What's wrong? We are Pavlov's dog and just ringing bells. And that's getting worse the smarter and the more comfortable we get. That's the problem with right now. We have too much. Being a man is not a leisure pursuit. If you want to start, take something away from yourself. Steve, once you said why you didn't have any appetites, you were certain you had zero appetites that were pulling you in a bad direction, is when you were in Haiti, right?
Yeah.
You got uncomfortable. Men, right now, some way, somehow, go get uncomfortable.
That'll do it for our very first week of shows in 2026. We're going to stick around and record the overtime for Blaze TV subscribers. For the rest of you, have a great weekend. Hope to see you again on Monday. Until then, go hard. Romans 8:28.